All right, so as many of you brothers know by now, James Harden isn't too happy with his time in Brooklyn. Of course, he couldn't have foreseen all the injuries. He couldn't have foreseen COVID and Kyrie not playing, only playing road games. So he's not enjoying his time there, and there's rumors that he wants out and that he will not be extending his contract in the offseason. So they're going to talk about it, and I'll chime in.
Tell your producers. All right, let's focus. Let's focus on the Nets though, because we can't really brag on them right now. They've lost 6 straight. The trade deadline's a week away. Chennai, is it a mistake for them?
At the time that I'm recording this, they've lost 8 straight. They just lost to the Nuggets today in a game where they actually put up a good effort in the first half, and in the third quarter they just got blitzed. Eight straight losses.
To ignore trade offers for James Harden.
I don't think it is. And when you look at this situation that the Nets are in, a lot of people are going to be like, okay, they've lost a lot of games consistently the last few weeks. Also, you look at, okay, what did he do last night versus the Kings?
Yeah.
4 points. A lot of people will say, oh, maybe there's some validity to making sure you have.
Yeah, this dude had 4 points against the fucking Kings after losing to the Suns the night before. Like, they came to the West Coast and just got whooped. They came to the West Coast and just got pounded on.
A trade asset available if James Harden is, the one that you want to move. But have you ever really thought, if we put things into perspective, that maybe all these conversations, the deadline, impending, is maybe causing a little bit of this rift that you can see on the court? I think the biggest perspective that we have to really bring together when it comes to the Brooklyn Nets is that this decision, to have a big three with KD, Kyrie, and James was a player's choice. They all wanted to play with each other, so much so that James.
Yeah, but, I'll give them this. They couldn't have foreseen all these things happen, especially the COVID thing. And, how's he supposed to know about Kyrie's decision and how this is going to play out? But, no excuses. He hasn't held up his end of the bargain. He's played trash. He's played trash. When the Nets have needed James Harden most in that series against the Bucks, he played trash. And this season, with their guys being in and out the lineup and them needing him to really hold the fort for him, he's been trash. So James Harden hasn't done his part in Brooklyn.
James Harden risked it all, per se, left Houston to join this crew. Now, the unfortunate part, and I think a lot of people need to understand this, is that James Harden, no matter what his numbers might be right now, has been the glue for the Brooklyn Nets. He's played 80 games, about 20 or so more than Kyrie and KD. He's the person that's going to give you your best chance to maintain your status in the East right now.
Well, he ain't doing it. They just lost 8 straight, so he ain't maintaining enough. He's not maintaining enough.
For a large portion of the season, without those two or with one or the other, he's been able to keep them in the top 4. Right now, this is probably the worst of it. I see why people are like, oh, you might want to explore, but, myself as a player, that idea that your team is thinking about, trading you, that could cause this experiment that you really put all your chips in the middle of the table to implode when right now you really want to win a championship. That's where the Nets are.
I get what she's saying, but it looks like it's imploding right now. It looks like it's imploding right now. If these rumors are coming out and if he's not holding down the fort, he seems like a guy who, once he's not motivated anymore, or once he's kind of out of it, he can't even fake it or can't even put up an effort. Like, he's just the type of guy who, if he's not fucking with a job, he gonna go in there and quit that day. Like, he's done. He's over it. So, unless KD comes back and is just completely taking over for the team and Patty Mills is stepping up and Cam Thomas is stepping up and they get Kyrie for road games in the playoffs or whatever. Unless that occurs, this Nets team really ain't going to do shit because James Harden is in the way. At this point, he's in the way. If he's playing like this, if he's unmotivated, if he's not playing defense, if he's not sharing the ball, if he's taking poor shots and not hitting them, if he's going to be out of condition, they're not going to win. I'll tell you right now, if they get Ben Simmons and Ben Simmons is playing Ben Simmons basketball, like when Ben Simmons is playing well, not that bullshit that we saw in the playoffs, but when Ben Simmons is actually on his game, Ben Simmons would be a better fit for the Nets than James Harden is. Ben Simmons would fit great with that team. He would be locking up on defense, and they wouldn't need him to shoot because they got so many shooters.
All right, let me say this to you. It is a mistake for the Nets to ignore Harden's, trade rumors and, not taking phone calls. It's a mistake.
And when Stephen A. Smith talks about James Harden, I listen because James Harden, Carmelo Anthony, Kobe Bryant when Kobe Bryant was in the NBA. Those are the few players who Stephen A. Smith actually has contact with. Allen Iverson. If Stephen A. Smith is talking about one of those guys, you can almost kind of guess it that he heard from them, or you could kind of assume that he's heard from their people or something of that sort. You know, those are the athletes that he has a connect with. When he talks other shit, or sometimes when Stephen A. just says stuff, you know he's bullshitting, or you know he's just saying stuff to say it. But there's a couple athletes, James Harden is one of them, who he tends to know what he's talking about when he's talking about them.
You listen. You always listen. You have to. That's number one. But before I get into my point about James Harden, let me say this. I'm not really worried about the Brooklyn Nets. First of all, they don't have KD, who I believe went healthy.
Well, they lost 8 in a row, so if you're not worried, hopefully they're worried. Somebody should be worried. You don't lose 8 games in a row, and there's just nothing to be worried about. I don't care if KD's hurt. You can't lose 8 games in a row.
He is the greatest in the world. He's a professional buckets maker. This brother is something special. I ain't concerned about them with him at all, okay? Milwaukee wouldn't be there if he wore size 12 instead of bigger size. They wouldn't even be in the championship, okay? They wouldn't be the champions, all right? That's number one. Number two.
Agreed.
Kyrie, and it's really, really nice to see him conducting himself with class as he talks to the media. They're not peons. They're actually human beings that are asking questions that are worthy of being answered. Proud of him for doing that. This brother's a showstopper, and he reminded us of that against Golden State the other night when there was no Harden or King.
Stephen A. Smith has such a problem with Kyrie. He wants to go on and on and on about Kyrie. Now he wants to show Kyrie some love because Kyrie bowed down to him. Kyrie showed the media some respect, so now Stephen A. wants to fucking glorify him. Shut up, Stephen A. Keep that same energy that you had. You weren't fucking with Kyrie. You were going on about him. Stephen A. pisses me off sometimes.
AD, and he put on that show. Kyrie is something special. He's box office. I just don't trust him long term. So I pay him 1 year to 1 year, but I give him, he can make as much money as he wants 1 year to 1 year. As long as he's going to play, he deserves to pay because he's that special.
You're entitled to that opinion. Kyrie has been a little bit of a loose end.
I got to take a moment to give props to the rest of the Brooklyn Nets. Patty Mills, I think, has been sensational this year. Blake Griffin, suddenly he can dunk again.
Patty Mills is always sensational. One of the best role players in the NBA every single season.
And now that he's no longer
Oh,
in Detroit.
goodness.
He can dunk again now that he's no longer in Detroit. And he's been doing
But they did
stuff.
say he's out of the rotation.
That's
That
okay.
was a lot.
But that's okay. I'm
Blake Griffin's been horrible this year. Horrible. They should have kept Jeff Green.
just talking about what I'm seeing from the young cats, the Claxons.
Jeff Green is one of those guys who like bounces around from every single team. But if I was a general manager, I would want Jeff Green on my team. I would sign him to a multi-year deal. You know, maybe you don't now because he's older and stuff, but I would have signed him to a multi-year deal a couple seasons ago because Jeff Green is a gamer, dude. Like, Jeff Green, the past couple postseasons has made his mark on whatever team he's on. You know, he made an impact for the Rockets a couple years ago in the bubble. He made an impact for the Nets last year. He was the only guy helping out KD in that series against the Bucks. Joe Harris went fucking missing. Jeff Green was hitting shots for him. Like, Jeff Green's a real basketball player.
Since the Cam Thomasons of the world, the Bruce Browns of the world, you know, I'm looking at these cats and their activity with the stars. They're complementary pieces that I think can give you some energy, and I like what I'm seeing. Let me get to Harden.
Complementary pieces to stars. So in order for them to complement, the stars have to be doing their part, you know? And when KD's hurt and when Kyrie's only available on the road, that leaves James Harden. And James Harden ain't been playing like no star, you know? James Harden has not been playing like no star. I did a video on the Eastern Conference All-Star reserves. And yeah, James Harden made it. And yeah, I agreed with him making it. He's going to make it. But down year for James Harden. James Harden's been nasty this season. So it's not enough. They need to work out that Kyrie Irving situation because they need Kyrie on the court at all times. And they need KD back. And really, they need a better coach because Steve Nash doesn't do shit. Steve Nash just be throwing these guys out there and says, go play. And maybe that's the way that you have to do it because you're playing with so many stars and all the egos and shit like that. But, like, this dude doesn't draw up anything, you know? To his credit, they play defense. They play more defense than you would expect a Steve Nash coach team to play, which is funny. But On offense, they don't do shit, man. Him and the Dallas Mavericks, Jason Kidd, both teams, they don't run shit on offense. And that's surprising because you got Hall of Fame point guard coaches. You would think that they would, have some tricks up their sleeve for offense, but they don't run shit.
Harden is averaging 22, 10, and 8. And he's having a bad year. Shooting 41% from the field, like 33% from three-point range. He's not Harden.
Yeah, he's shooting horrible from the field. His usage rate is high. He always has the ball in his hand. He's not playing defense. He's not having good body language. He's not lifting the team up. He's not making plays at the right time, dude. People just want to throw out numbers and shit like that. Stephen A's protecting James Harden because that's one of the few players that still fucks with him. One of the few players that'll give him an interview or show him some love or whatever, But don't sit up here and say James Harden down season. He's only doing this, this, and this, and try to humbly boast it. Bro, James Harden's having a down year, point blank. Yes, he's James Harden, but he's having a down year.
I'd listen because there are questions as to whether or not he is what he used to be. Hamstring injury, weight issues coming in.
Doesn't look like it.
In the camp, out of shape. For initially because he wanted to get out of Houston, and then this year. After last year with the hamstring injury and all of this other stuff. I think this is just me personally, my experience. Y'all just going to have to listen to me on this.
Okay.
There's something to say about being happy. When you're someplace you want to be.
Absolutely.
That's funny that Stephen A. Smith's saying this shit now because he wasn't saying that shit when KD wanted to get the hell up out of Oklahoma and come to the Bay. He wasn't saying that shit. He wasn't saying, it's nicer weather and, better financial opportunities. And you get to go to a team with guys who actually know how to play basketball the right way. He wasn't saying that shit. He was going to task on KD because KD left and came to a better team. But now he wants to say it's about being happy and this and that. That's because Stephen A. is connected with James Harden. He's showing love. He's going to say that because James Harden's his boy. If KD was his boy the way that James Harden is, he would have said the same thing for KD. But because he didn't have to connect with KD, he wanted to stir up the pot and cause a whole scene and shit because he doesn't have access to KD. And he does the same shit with LeBron. If you notice, Stephen A. Smith goes hard on LeBron and he says whatever the fuck he wants to say about LeBron because LeBron don't give him no interviews. LeBron don't give him no shine. LeBron doesn't validate him. So he says, fuck it. I'm going to call a spade a spade. I'm going to say Jordan's better than you. That's just how Stephen A. is. That's how these media guys are. If they don't get their way, they start playing games. It's all politics.
He wanted to be in Houston when he was in Houston because he was with Daryl Morey and he was treated like royalty. You ain't the man in Brooklyn. That would be KD.
But James Harden hasn't said anything to the like that he's not happy.
I understand that. I know that. But you also know, we know a lot of things that don't get said, Shanae. You know that. Okay.
But don't you think he'd be happy if they were winning?
No. They listen. They've lost 6 straight, and they're still 29 and 22.
And also,
and by the way, before Kevin Durant goes down, before he went down, they were the number 1 seed.
These are reports that they are not taking calls, not like they're not planning for contingencies.
I'm not saying he's like God miserable or anything like that. I'm just saying there's a difference between going to work every day and being ecstatic about it. And what I'm saying to you is that.
Well, when KD's out and when Kyrie's not available sometimes, you got to become the leader of the team, dude. You got to set that tone in the locker room, and you got to be the guy who makes it fun. You got to be the guy who rallies the troops and brings everybody behind you and sets up that atmosphere, man. Set up that chemistry in the locker room, dude. But that's been James Harden's problem. Even when he was in Houston, he wasn't a leader, There were reports that the team plane would have to wait for James Harden because James Harden is just fucking taking his sweet time, James Harden's always been like that. It shows in the style of play in the way that he plays, it shows that he's just a one-man crew. He's a selfish guy, so.
If Harden potentially could fight, because I don't think he's finished by a long shot. He's a superstar, and I think he will show it when it's time. But there's something to be said.
He's not a superstar. The only superstars in the NBA right now, superstars. And when I say superstars, I mean superstars. My definition of a superstar is a guy who's played his best basketball in the best moments, in the biggest moments. His best basketball in the biggest moments. Steph Curry has played his best basketball in the biggest moments. He's been big time before in NBA Finals. Giannis has been big time before in NBA Finals. LeBron has been big time before in NBA Finals, but LeBron, LeBron is falling off a little bit. He's still LeBron, but he's falling off a little bit. He's not in his prime anymore. Kevin Durant has played his best basketball in the biggest moments. Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Kawhi Leonard when healthy. Those are the only guys who I'd be like, yeah, those guys are currently superstars. Those are the only guys. James Harden is probably in that next tier. He's in that bubble, But James Harden is not. He's not in the same category as Steph Curry. He's not in the same category as Giannis Antetokounmpo. He's not. And when people were arguing between who's the best player on the Brooklyn Nets, is it James Harden or KD? Remember people were arguing that last year? Foolishness. Not even close.
I have a question for you, Stephen. What would make James Harden happy right now?
Well, at this particular moment, nothing.
Oh, come on.
Hold on.
No.
At this particular
Kevin
moment.
Durant
being held.
When Stephen A. Smith says that, I'm assuming that James Harden told him that. Maybe I'm wrong for that. I'm assuming James Harden told him that because that's his boy. So if Stephen A. is making this shit up, he's going to hear an earful for it.
Full-time Kyrie, all that.
$100%.
No. I'm talking about Harden's game himself. We all know that KD
Oh,
coming back.
you
I'm
want
talking
him
about
to be the man, he was in Houston.
I'm saying with KD out, you kind of need to be.
Yeah.
With Kyrie only playing road games, you kind of need to be. What I'm saying to you is when we talk about Harden's future, if Harden is contemplating anything, that would be the reason why. Because being a complimentary piece, how could it get any better than playing with KD?
But I think it's Harden's prerogative.
Excuses. Look, I'm going to close the video out saying this. I'm not going to put the stamp on it yet, but I'm real close to just saying that James Harden is a career loser. I'm real close to saying that he's never going to get an NBA championship because the dude he's not doing it the right way. He's not doing it the right way, and he's a guy who I actually enjoy watching him play. I think he's exciting to watch when he's on his game. I like how he maneuvers the defense, how he maneuvers the defender and manipulates the game. I think it's interesting, I like his step back. I enjoyed watching him when he was in Phoenix and when he was leading those teams. I mean, not Phoenix, when he was in Houston and he was leading those teams against the Warriors, especially when he had Chris Paul and they had those series going back and forth. But I don't know. He looks a step slower. He's not every year he just takes his conditioning less and less serious. Now he's having issues in the locker room. I'm real close to just saying that James Harden just isn't a winner. But, the trade deadline's ending soon. We'll see how it goes. He's not going to get traded. I highly, highly doubt he gets traded. A Ben Simmons trade for James Harden would be interesting. I think it would help both teams. It would help Philly. He would look good with Embiid, I think. And Ben Simmons, like I said earlier, he would fit with the Nets. But I don't see that happening, at least not before the trade deadline ends. And when his contract's up and when he's a free agent in the offseason, I'm sure he's going to walk away. So, James Harden just doesn't have those intangibles. And wherever he goes, I just can't see him at this point in his career really being the focal point of a championship winning team. I think that kind of has sailed.